I think I have just discovered one of the coolest features you could do with Go. So this is a project I've been working on for a few weeks. Go Task Manager is just a glorified to-do list application, which has both a front end built with React and Vite and a back end using the Echo web framework with Golang. If we go here to the desktop, so I basically built this binary. And then if I click into it, you're going to see it's going to start the web server on port 8081, which is the default one. If we go to localhost 8081, you're going to see a full web application bundled with the backend API server all in one binary. Tell me that doesn't blow your mind, right? So let's just demo it just to see. So the backend of this application of this to-do list is built with Go. Let's just use the app for a little bit just to show that it works. Engineering, enter. You can see the project gets created, right? So it has light mode and dark mode depending on your preference. I think all apps should come with a light mode or dark mode toggle in my opinion. Let's create a task, hello world task. We can select a project. Let's have a label. Maybe the label would be great stuff. So this uses the rich text editor of Mantine, which is the UI library I used. So let's just use some rich text stuff here, maybe some hello world, and then let's just highlight that and click here to make it bold. Create a new task. So if we click into the task, you can see here that the markdown for the bold text does get carried over. And you can see here that it works, right? So the backend of this is the Golang server. It uses Gorm as the ORM and it uses SQLite as the database, right? So the mind-blowing part is all of this is bundled in a single binary, right? You can see the API requests here. So you don't have to think about all of the files, right, in JavaScript. It makes deploying stuff a lot easier since you only have to think about the single binary that gets built. We're going to go through on how you could do this on your end to build an application with Go and React with Vite to basically create a single binary that could hold like the entire application, both the front end and the back end. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to head over to VS Code and then we're going to go into a directory where we're comfortable with, right? So in my case, I created a directory called Go React Demo. This will be the location of the project. We have to make sure that we are using Go 1.18.3. So you can check that by running the go version command. You can see here 1.18.3. I'm using WSL, by the way. And the first thing we need to do to bootstrap our go/react project is run the go mod init command. So we're going to run go mod init, go react demo. It's going to create a go.mod file. And then we're just going to create a main.go file. We can use the touch command. So here you're going to see a blank go file, which is the entry point to our application. We're going to write some basic code just to make sure everything works. We're going to write package main. We're going to import FMT. We're going to write func main, and then finally print a hello world. fmt.println hello world. Okay. Save. And then let's try to run this by running the go run main.go command. And you can see we're printing hello world. So we got our Go project set up. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to install some dependencies. So we're going to install Echo. Echo is a high performance, extensible, minimalist Go web framework. It is an alternative to web frameworks such as Gin, Fiber, and many others. So I preferred using Echo because I really like their documentation and how they organize their documentation. They have these cookbooks as well for commonly done tasks for API servers. We're going to be using Echo in this case. To install Echo, let me just clear things here. We're going to run go get github.com labstack echo v4. So all of these commands are going to be in the comment section below. So we're going to install the Echo dependency here. And you can see here that our go.mod and go.sum got added. So you can see here all of the dependencies. We're going to create a basic API route. For us to be able to do that, we're going to instantiate a new Echo instance. So E is equal to a new variable of echo.new to instantiate the Echo server. We're going to create a get endpoint. So we'll just do e.get, the route name, API, takes in a function, echo context, error, and then we're just going to return a string, c.string, the status first, which is the status okay, and then finally the string of hello world. Okay, at this point, we've just added a single route called API, and if we make a get request to this API endpoint, it's going to return a status okay and hello world as the text. So let's start the server by writing e.logger.fatal and then e.start. And then we're going to specify the port. In this case, we're going to use a port that's rarely used. 8080. I hope you guys saw the sarcasm in that. So let's try to run this server here. Let me just clear the console and then let's do go run main.go. The Echo server is running on port 8080. Let's just run a quick curl to verify that the route is actually working. So let's run curl http localhost 8080/API. And you can see here, we're getting hello world. So at this point, we created a basic API server using Echo as the web framework. And all it's doing is just if we're hitting the /API route, it's returning hello world. So at this point, we're going to be creating the React application. So let me just exit the Go server by hitting Control C. Let me clear. We would like to run the command yarn create Vite. This will allow us to create our React application using Vite. Just wait for this to resolve. Okay, so at this point, it's going to ask for our project name. Let me just increase the length of our console here. We're going to name this web, and then we're going to use React because React is king. We're going to use React.js because TypeScript is awesome. And then we're going to cd into the web folder that Vite has created for us. We're going to run yarn to install the dependencies. So let's just wait for this to resolve. Okay. So let's check the web folder here, and you can see all of the files, including the node modules, have been bootstrapped, right? The next thing we're going to do is we're going to modify the package.json slightly. So currently when we run the dev command, it's not going to output all of the files that the Go server would need. So for us to be able to do development and at the same time have hot reload while using the Go server, we have to modify the dev script here. So what we're going to do, we're going to modify that command with tsc vite build -- watch, which will basically rebuild the dist directory whenever there's a file change. And then let's try to run the dev command. So we're going to do yarn run dev. And you can see that it creates a new dist directory contain all of the files that we need. So we're going to go to our browser and go to localhost 8080. All right, so it's not working. Now, the reason it's not working is because we have to serve the files using Go. So how do we do that? We'll come back to our editor here, and we'll create a web.go file. Web.go. Yes, we're adding a Go file into our React directory. So here, we're going to declare package web. We're going to import the embed module, which comes from Go standard library. We're also going to import Echo. So here, github.com/labstack/echo, and then v4. We're going to create some variables here. So the cool thing about the embed module in Go is it allows you to embed files directly into the Go binary, which is how we're going to pack our React application inside of the Go binary. So we're going to write 2 // Go. Let me just zoom in here because the comments may not be legible. Embed all dist, and we're going to declare a variable dist embed.fs. We're going to create another variable for the index.html, index.html, same thing, embed.fs, and then we're going to write in comments go embed dist index.html, basically pointing to the index.html inside the dist directory whenever we build our React project. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to create another variable called dist dir fs equals echo.must subfs. We're going to pass in the dist variable that we just created above here, and then we're going to create a dist index HTML variable, and then we're declaring that as echo.must subfs index HTML, which is the variable we created here. All right, so we're going to create a public function, which is why we're going to have a initial capital letter here. Register handlers takes in E of type echo.echo. So here, since we get the echo instance, we're going to serve the static files using e.filefs and then pass in root, meaning we want to serve the static file of index.html, which we're going to declare here in the second parameter. And then the third is the file system. So we're going to reference dist index.html. So all of the magic really happens on this single line. e.filefs, which is the echo instance, is basically declaring a route where we're serving a static file from this file system here. And you can see here that this variable is referencing directly the index.html, which is in the dist directory here, right? So what the must subfs does is, to keep it simple, it resolves prefixing issues. That's all you need to know for now. we're going to serve the static index.html. So it's going to be, for example, localhost 8080. When we go to the root of that URL, it's going to serve the index.html, which is from this dist index HTML file system here. And we're also going to serve the static files that comes with the index.html. So if you can see here in the dist directory, there are some assets as well that needs to get loaded, namely the CSS, the JS, and the SVG file, at least for the current case. We're going to pass in the dist dir fs. What we do now is if we go to the main.go file, we're going to import that module. So we import here. Our project name is Go React Demo. So we're going to do Go React Demo /web, which is the Go file that we created within the web directory a while ago. So here, what we're going to do is before we register the API route, we do web.registerHandlers, which is the only function that we expose, and we pass in the echo instance, right? So at this point, let's try to run the server just to see if the React project is visible. So let's just cancel this by running Control-C. Let's clear it. Let's go to the root directory of our project, and then let's run go run main.go. So everything started correctly without any errors. Let's go to the web browser. Let's go to localhost 8080, and you can see the Vite project is loading with the default Vite and React page. So at this point, we've created a REST API endpoint here, and we've also bundled our static files all in a single Go project. So let's test this out, right? Let's go to the web folder and then try to make a GET request to the Go server, which is this API endpoint, to see if everything does work correctly. Because the point of this is it's sort of like a full stack application, right? So let's go to the web folder, let's go to source, let's go to app.tsx. We're going to remove some of these things here because we don't need them. We're going to remove the use state here as well. We don't need that. We're going to import use effect. At this point, you guys can do what you want. You can remove these as well, but we're just going to have it here anyway. We're going to create a state const data set data equals use state, which is a string, because if you remember, the API only returns a string of hello world. So this is going to be a string. The thing we're going to do next is we're going to create a use effect. So here we'll write use effect, pass in an anonymous lambda function, and then the dependency array, which is nothing. And then finally, we're going to create a function to fetch from the API, right? So we're going to do const fetch data is equal to an async function. Const response is equal to await fetch. And then we're going to pass in HTTP localhost 8080 /API. So the Go server is running at port 8080 here, as you can see here in the console below, localhost 8080. And then the API endpoint is here, which is the API route that we just created to return just hello world. What we're going to do is const data equals await response.text, because the response of this API endpoint is text and not JSON. And then finally, we're going to set data to the data returned. So here we're going to call the fetch data function by writing fetch data, and then if there's an error, we catch it, the error, and then we'll just console log the error. So finally, we're going to output the data here. We're just going to save that, and at this point, it would be helpful for you to create a new console here, cd into web, and then run yarn dev. So at this point, when developing both the Go server and the React server, right, you're going to have two terminals open. But I'll actually create a script later that allows us to use one terminal, and it could really improve the overall development experience. But for now, we're just going to run this here. So at this point, we have both the Go server running localhost 8080, and we have also ran the build command to rebuild the files in the dist directory. So let's just run the Go server again. So it would see all of the changes in the dist directory. So let's go to localhost 8080 again in the browser. If we change that, and you can see here, there's really small text of hello world, which comes from the API endpoint. So what we should do next is let's create a script so that we don't have to have two terminals open, right? So let's close this terminal here. Let's cancel this, and let's just focus on the root directory. So here in the root directory of our project, we're going to create a new file called dev.sh. It's going to be a bash file, shebang, bin sh, and the contents of this bash file is going to be cd web and then yarn dev go run main.go, and we're going to pass that to FG, which is the foreground command. So FG or foreground is going to take these two commands, which is yarn dev and go run main.go, and run them both in parallel. So we're going to clear this. We're going to use the script that we've created. The first thing we have to do is to run chmod +x dev.sh to fix permissions. And then from here, we can just run dev.sh. And you can see here that the API server launches first, and then we have the output of Vite and React building the static files here. So this could be really useful if you guys want to not have two terminals open, one for the API server with Go and one for the React application, right? So there is also a tool that we can use with Go called Air. So Air is a tool that allows us to have hot reload when working with Go projects. So we're not going to cover this in the scope of this tutorial, but it could be really helpful. Personally, I've used this for quite a while when working with Go projects, and it's just so good. It's like NodeMon with like JavaScript, right? This would be like the NodeMon to Go, and I think it's really awesome. And you can configure it too. So after reviewing the footage, I came to the conclusion that I have to tell you guys how to set up Air, right? Because if I didn't, I would be such a sadistic person, because I really don't see how you could have a great development experience without setting up Air with Go. So the first thing we need to do is we need to install Air. We have to run this command to install Air with Go. So go install github.com cosmtrek air at latest. And you can see here that I've already installed it, so there's no output. It would be worth taking a look at your Go path. So I'm using ZSH. So depending on whether you're using ZSH or Bash, in my case, I'm using ZSH. So let's just take a look at my ZSH RC file. And you can see here that I've set up my Go paths here at the bottom. So there's the Go root, the Go path, the Go bin, and then the path variable below. So you'd want to set this up for your terminal. In my case, we're using ZSH, so I made the changes to my ZSH RC file. If you're using Bash, then you would make the changes to your Bash RC. Just make sure that your Go environment variables are set up correctly. Otherwise, you won't be able to run the Air command correctly. So we're just going to clear this. And here, since we've already installed Air, the first thing we need to do is to generate a configuration file for Air. We're going to run Air init. It's going to create a .air.toml file in the root. So you can see here, there are some default parameters here already. So you can really modify this if you want to change your project. I know some people want to place the main.go inside a CMD folder when setting up Go projects, so you can set that here too. But by default, this actually is compatible for our case since it takes a look at the root directory of the project. So we should be good to go. Now, the final thing we need to do is we need to modify the dev.sh script. So we'd want to modify this go run main.go and just replace it with Air. Simple as that, right? So from here, we can clear the terminal and then run ./dev.sh. And you can see here, it watches the web directory for all the node modules and all the files that's in here. And you can see here that it also builds the web folder as well. So it generates the static files because we've specified that here. Okay, so let's try to make some changes to our app.tsx file in the web directory just to see if this actually works. So first of all, let's just see if this works initially. So you can see here, hello world, it's working fine. Same result as last time. So let's try to make some changes to our web application to see if it hot reloads in real time. So we're just going to minimize this. Let's go to our app.tsx and let's add a additional tag here, maybe an h1 tag, h1, and then let's write wombo. All right. So right now we're expecting the hello world at the top and then an h1 tag of wombo below, right? So we're going to go back here. Let's refresh. And you can see here, we have hello world and wombo with live reload / hot reload, depending on your guys' preferences on what you want to call it. And let's minimize this. So let's try to make some changes to the API route, right? So we're supposed to have hot reload or live reload for both the web application and the Go server. So let's go to the main.go. Let's just write hello wombo here, save that. And you can see here, it has seen that the main.go has changed and it rebuilds everything. So you can see here as well that there's a temp directory, and this is basically the built executable. This is where Air stores the files. Make sure you don't check this into source control if you do. This is not meant to be checked into version control. All right, so we're gonna go back here. Let's do a refresh, and you can see here, hello wombo and wombo. So what have we done? What we did is we've configured the project with Air so that we have live reload when we make changes to the web application, and we have live reload when we make changes to the API server. Now you guys can have a extremely great development experience when working with this project. So the moment of truth. let's try to build the binaries and see if they run perfectly. So if you're on WSL, we can build the Linux binaries by simply running go build main.go. And here you can see that we've outputted a main file. And if we just run the file by writing ./main, we'll have localhost 8080 up and running. So let's see if the React application got bundled correctly. So let's go to our browser, and here let's visit localhost 8080. So we got the Linux binary working. Let's try to build a binary for Windows. So let's minimize the browser here. Let's exit the process by running Control-C. Let's clear this. So for us to be able to build the Windows binaries while on WSL, we're going to have to declare some environment variables here. We're going to run this command, which is specifying that the operating system is Windows and the architecture is AMD 64, since that's the architecture of my CPU. Run that command, and you can see here we have a new executable main.exe. So let's open this file in the desktop. So let's reveal in Explorer. We have a lot of mains here. Okay, so I think it's this application type here. So let's minimize the code editor. Let's copy this and then paste it in the browser. Yes, it may be harmful. Yeah. Okay, let's exit this. Let's double click the file and it's going to prompt us to allow access. We're just going to allow it since we just compiled it ourselves. And you can see here, we're getting the exact same output, localhost 8080. So at this point, let's try to visit the browser to see if the results are the same. So we're going to just enter. All right, so it's working because it's still outputting hello world, but to be safe, let's just go to an incognito tab and then paste it here. And you can see for the Windows binary, it still works. So why would this be useful? I could think of a few use cases. Specifically, I could think of what if you wanted to have a React binary, right? It doesn't have to be an API server. You could just remove this, right? You can remove that and have it just be a thin wrapper of your React application. And it would basically, when you compile the binary, it's going to be just the executable with the front-end application. Sort of like a light Go wrapper that embeds the React files, the static files, to the Go binary so that anyone with Windows can run it, right? So I think that's really powerful. Another reason why you would want to do this is if you would like to have your React application and your API server in a single binary, and when you deploy to the cloud via AWS, DigitalOcean, or whatever cloud provider you want, you don't have to think about, Dockerizing everything. It'll just be a single binary that the hopefully Linux operating system that you're using on the cloud could just run all of it at once, right? So that would be really useful as well for cloud deployments. So that would be up to you. But congratulations, you've compiled a binary with a React application and a Go backend API server all in one. And that's really amazing. Thanks, guys. If you think all of this information is useful, please leave a like and sub to the channel. Thanks and have a great day.